Welcome, 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 everyone. Thanks for joining in tonight.
Hello.
Excellent. I'm just getting the screen and everything prepared here to begin in just a second. And I'm sure we'll have a few other joiners here. Okay, it looks like everything is set up here, thankfully. Sometimes with doing webinars, it's difficult to get a PowerPoint and Zoom to cooperate. So I think we've achieved it. We'll see. Anyway, I'm Mike Davila. I'm joined with tonight by Anne-Marie Hatfield, my business partner. And we have two missions for tonight. One is to talk about the career search. And hey, what do we do? Why are we doing this kind of as one of the beginning steps of our process? And secondly is to answer any questions either about the career search or any other program kind of question that you might have regarding the process or things that are coming up in the news, whatever it may be. So we're happy to take questions both as we go and at the very end of the presentation. We don't have a huge group tonight. So if you'd like to ask a question, you can simply unmute yourself and ask. If you want to chat it into the chat room, there's like a little bar, a control bar at the bottom. You can use that. I think you can raise your hand even. So there's lots of options here if you have questions as we go along. But anyway, the career search part of the process for me has always been a really interesting and fun part of the process, because for us, we're just starting to get to know your student and the family. There's just a lot of really great information that comes out of the assessments that we do. And so it's worth talking about. And if I had my druthers, this would, be a big part of the process in terms of conversation, and not only just amongst the student and the consultant, but also the parents and the student, because you guys as parents clearly know the student really, really well. And sometimes having this type of additional information at your fingertips, it's kind of like the user's manual sometimes for your kiddo. So it's really nice. And for you as students, this is really great information because colleges really want students that come to their campus self-aware. And I really believe that the aptitude survey, the personality assessment, the interest survey really helps in that process. So anyway, we're here tonight to talk about the career search. And let me move on to the next slide here. Why is this important in the first place? First and foremost, we want students to be very, very happy in their work lives and with their career choice. And I know early on in my career, I wasn't really happy in the initial work I did in my 20s, which wasn't this work. But I had no idea. I never did any assessments or anything like that to help me understand what were my strengths, what were my aptitudes or anything like that. And so we'll kind of dig into that. But at the core of it, I just want everyone to know we want students to be super happy with their work lives. And we feel like that spills over. We spend a lot of time at work. And if we're happy there, it definitely tends to spill over into our personal lives as well. Financially, it's a deal. We are not naive. If we change majors a whole bunch of times, that's going to definitely extend the time that we spend in college, which college is not cheap these days. So it is definitely a financial deal. And, theoretically, we would love for everyone to graduate within 4 years. That's a big deal for us. And, in a previous life, I was a financial advisor. We used to show clients the difference between retiring at age 60 or age 65, let's say, or even 62. And those extra couple of years of a 401k invested well could mean a difference between a portfolio that has 6 figures or 7 figures. So if we prolong our earning, if we stay in college an extra year or two, which isn't super uncommon, we actually long-term can be, kind of affecting some long-term planning as well. And the other reason why I think it's important to have a chat about career stuff is that there are 1,000 careers out there. I mean, it's bazillions of careers. There's lots of possibilities for students to be looking at now. So I think all of those are really apropos for our discussion for tonight. And so parents, how did you guys choose a major and career? It's really fun. When I ask parents this, when they're, in on these calls or these meetings, hey, it looked good on TV. I know, yeah, it looked good. It was fun. My dad did it, or I didn't. It happened one day when my academic advisor asked me what major I was pursuing, and I just coughed up an answer, and that became my initial major. Sometimes high school guidance counselors can help, and recommend certain careers. Went to a majors fair on campus, and like usually in my sophomore year of college, and I liked what the professor said about a particular major. I knew I was a lousy poet or mathematician or whatever, so I just avoided that completely. And that was me in math. I knew, I was not going to do a math-related career. I wanted to make a maximum salary. That was me at 17. I think I really was super focused on, making as much money as possible was a big factor. As prestigious to become a, X, Y, or Z, for sure. I see tinges of that still, with students sometimes. And this one is the canned answer, of course. It was always my passion. I researched it, I interned and job shadowed. I had a really great job growth. It had great potential as a job. It fit my personality and I was good at it. Yeah, we'd love to hear everyone say that. That is the canned and corny answer, but it's kind of true. It was a passion. So a lot of times colleges guys will look back on, a resume or in the admissions process to see, is there clear indications of, hey, I have a passion for robotics or engineering or whatever it may be. Did you do it for a while, or was this yesterday that you chose this? Researching it, we're going to talk about that tonight. Interning and job shadows, for those of you guys who are juniors, now is the time to really start thinking about the summer, and if you're a sophomore, even better, right? Start thinking about the next year or so ahead. Can I get an internship? I just had a family meeting tonight with a student a little bit further along in the process. But I was asking, hey, what do you guys do in the summer? Oh, not a lot of plans, but we definitely have engineers in our family and we need to get an internship lined up with somebody. It's not going to be dad. I'm like, perfect. You guys are thinking the right thoughts, Also, just as a sidebar, in your portal, in the files section, our staff is currently updating a spreadsheet that has a whole host of enrichment programs that students can take part in over the summer. So job shadowing, internships, things like that, plus enrichment programs, fantastic. Okay, gives you extra insight into what you want to do. All right, it didn't really happen. Some facts provided for the National Center for Education Statistics. Okay. So 33% of all undergraduates will change their major. We know that this is not a new trend. This has been going on for some time, but think about it. 1 out of every 3 students are going to change their major. 10% of students will change their undergraduate major at least twice, maybe more. That's still a huge percentage of students if you really think about it, because there are millions of students going to college. 41% of undergraduates will graduate within 4 years. That's it. Okay, so let's flip that. It means that 60% of students do not finish in 4 years. Okay, some of that is due to reasons outside of people's control. They have a health issue, or they're in a 5-year major or something. Okay, we get that. But we know at least a little bit of this is due to just kind of choosing a major without maybe a whole lot of insight. Okay. So the average student, by the way, will take almost 4.5 years to finish. What does that mean? That means the average student is overspending on college by approximately a semester, which could be $20,000 or more. Okay, so that got everyone's attention, I'm sure. But it's theoretical, but it can happen, and it does happen. So the other shocking statistic that I saw when I was doing the research for this is that 36% of graduates say that they would change their major if they could go back and do it. So that means that college graduates, people who have finished the program into the industry, are saying, wow, I could have had a V8. I could have done something different with my life, So we definitely don't want that outcome, So Earlier self-awareness, the better. Okay, so here are some employment trends for those of you guys who are tracking this kind of stuff. And this only tangentially has something proximately to do with where we're at in the junior year, but these are definitely trends that we're not going to see reversed, like remote and hybrid working. Yes, you can see the percentages of those people who are either doing it now or full-time, 38% are full-time working at home. So it's great for morale, great for productivity. It's challenging for security and maintaining culture. Okay, we get that. What does that mean for us as students? Well, we need to be adaptable. We need to be able to perhaps have a conversation with colleges saying, yeah, I was able to do these things during the COVID years to kind of get myself out of the normal going to school mode. That shows adaptive thinking and behavior. So colleges value that. Yes, workplace surveillance is on the rise. The line between private life and corporate life is kind of blurring now because of all the work at home. There's definitely more collaboration tools, things like Horizon Workrooms, which is Facebook's Meta project, and then flexible hours. There are a lot of countries now that are going to 4-day work weeks, which kind of compresses the work week down, which is nice. It gives you more freedom, but there's definitely a performance aspect that has to be met for most of these companies that are doing that. So, and many of them said, hey, they would like to stay with this 4-day work week. So great. These are all things that are just kind of happening in the big picture of employment today. Some other big picture stuff: industry winners and losers, individual careers and industries that are on the rise that we might want to look at if we're interested in this thing. So family services, individual services, things like social work and counseling. I had a lot of people come into the practice saying, hey, I'm really the counselor of my friend group. I'm empathetic and I think social work or counseling may be great. Fantastic. That is completely on the rise. And I have found just anecdotally that the salary ranges that they quote in most of the software programs are pretty low compared to what industry is actually providing in terms of earnings. So that's good news. Healthcare practitioners, definitely there's a huge need for that software development. The fastest growing careers, and this is as of this year, nurse practitioners, data scientists, information security analysts, statisticians, web developing, logisticians, physician assistants. So there's a lot here. And I only chose the ones where I've seen students over the past years looking at some of these careers. There's a whole host of other ones that were not included because they just didn't really have as much draw or applicability, or they didn't require a college degree. So the ones that are the biggest losers, you can kind of see all these guys, and a lot of them make sense. Coal mining, oops, let me go back. So travel arrangements, being a travel agent, apparel manufacturing, tobacco manufacturing. So I just thought those were interesting to look at to see where we wanted to steer clear of. Okay, so what's a good strategy to employ in this day and age to kind of help us get across the finish line in terms of perhaps hitting a major or at least the broad side of a barn? So the first thing I like to look at are the personality types of the students. And to do this, we do something called the Myers-Briggs, well, it's an adaptation, I should say, of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Test, or MBTI. A lot of parents, when I talk with them, they're like, oh yeah, I did that a long time ago. I don't remember my type, but it was pretty interesting to look at. This is embedded in the software program that your student has access to, their web portal for college Inroads. There are 16 types out there. Everyone has one. There are no better or no worse. But what it helps us understand about ourselves is what are our innate characteristics. And if I had done one of these prior to my first job, I probably, had I listened to it, would never have gone into that first job because my personality does not match a military officer personality type. Now, interestingly enough, when I left the military, I had adopted that personality type. Now, notionally, personality type is not going to change over the course of someone's life, but it does happen under extreme duress. And yes, the military for me was extreme duress. And I laugh because I tell people, look, I was really good at my job. I just didn't like it. I didn't wake up in the morning thinking, good, I get to go out and do my job today. And I knew something was wrong, even in my 20s when I was active duty, even though I had great, career potential and lots of good things happening for me personally, it wasn't good on my soul. So anyway, good to check this first. To me, it's kind of like a great foundation, baseline. The next thing I would look at are aptitudes, which is different from your personality type. Aptitudes really speak to what are you good at? What are the things that you can do that are less stressful because you have a natural knack at them. And the youth science assessment is fairly new, and it is groundbreaking in the fact that you are able to do an hour-and-a-half assessment and come out of it, and it will tell you pretty spot on what you're very good at. So you are given a unique set of characteristics that are then matched to careers. But then on top of that, take a look at your interests, because you might be really good at something, but if you're not, really interested in it, who cares? Let's move on. So what do you like? What are you good at? And what does your personality suggest? So the intersection of those three things are important. So the interests are also embedded in youth science. You're given what are called Holland codes. And this is based on John Holland's kind of pioneering work back in the 1950s and 60s, where he came up with this thing called the RIASEC model. You can't really see this, but everybody has, one of these quadrants, one of these triangles that we kind of gravitate toward, and you're measured on your top three. And so if you're an RCI, you are somebody who's realistic, conventional, and investigative. Great. That's probably somebody who's going to be more interested in things like logisticians or engineering types of careers. If you're artistic, social, and enterprising, let's say, you would be perhaps like a marketing director or something. So that's helpful. It's not the end all be all. I think having these three big top level screens put together makes the difference. Okay, so that's the strategy that we like to employ. And of course, overall, we want to end up in a position where our aptitude, here is high at what do we do, and our interest is really high. So that is going to be our best fit. And parents, I know that you know people who are really, really, for example, really good at what they do, but they really don't have much interest in it. And so they fall down into this extrinsic reward fit where they might be bored at the work that they do. Or they may have low aptitude, but high interest, where they're having lots of challenges in a lot of tension in their job. So anyway, the idea is that we want to move to an area where we're in high interest and high aptitude. Pretty basic. Okay, then we need to ask questions and take action. Once we have this information in hand, what's the job going to pay, right? Because we need to be aware of that. Some students grow up in an environment where their parents make a lot of money, but they might be attracted to jobs perhaps that don't make as much. That's just fine. We need to know what that looks like going in. And these assessments give the job outlook. It gives the pay salary range and things like that. Will the job be around in 10 years? That's a big deal too. What is the career outlook for some of these things? Again, these assessments will track and take a look at the BLS or the Bureau of Labor and Statistics projections for them. Or is it going to be super thin? Like I've seen some academic careers that are in the assessments that may only have 1,200 openings in the next 10 years. That's not enough. We need to have many, many more openings than just that. And then what can we learn about the career prior to going to college? This is a great thing to really dig into and think about. Are there professional associations that back the career that I'm interested in? Like ASME, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, for example. Can I join them now? Can I be a student member? That's great. If you're looking for something to put on a resume, that'd be a nice thing to have if you can swing it. Are there informational interviewing possibilities in the local community? And of course, the answer is yes. Very few professionals will just slam the door on a high school student who genuinely wants to know more about the job and what they do. So job shadowing is out there. Can you have a discussion at a bare minimum with a college professor? These people are passionate about what they do, and a lot of times they really enjoy sitting down to talk with high school students about what they do. And again, we had mentioned the enrichment activities previously. And how about local internships? This one is tough to get. And a lot of times what I find is that parents and their social networks will sometimes come up with local internships through parents' work or friends of the family where we could apply and work for a few weeks. That's great. And it's pretty rare to see that happening in this day and age. So where else can I use these insights that I will gain from these assessments? Well, there's tactical uses, I think, and then there's strategic uses. And the tactical use is really how do you look at these strengths and blind spots and apply them at work, at school, socially. And that's within youth science. You can actually see how to employ your strengths. Strategic uses in the describing you section of youth science, and that the big overall paragraph that you get out of the personality assessment, those are fantastic to use for descriptive words that end up being, kind of key for the essays that we will write later, and somewhat for the resume as well. So what if I can't decide on a career? This is not, it doesn't matter how many assessments I take, I still am not going to be able to commit. That's okay, it happens. Don't panic. Like 20 to 50% of all college students apply undecided or go into a liberal arts types of environment, which we'll describe in a minute. The key is try to find the right building on campus, still to seek and see, hey, is it going to be communications, or is it going to be more along the lines of architecture or something like that? We don't want to ping pong around those majors. So look at the diagnostics, then listen to your gut and intuition. Is it going to be STEM or is it creative writing? Talk to teachers, talk to professors in the discipline, talk with students that are taking the major. Then look at the work that you've already done. Where am I most comfortable? Where do I do my best work? Which disciplines? And then you could also ask to speak with an academic advisor at the college within the department that you're looking at. So those are all ideas to help drill down. So don't worry if this happens. And then also I want to mention that not every college locks you into a major from the first day. There are the vast majority, I should say, of colleges out there take part in what's called liberal arts types of education, which means that for the first year and a half, you don't declare a major. You sample the disciplines, you learn who your friend groups are, you get a chance to talk with professors, and then in your sophomore year of college, that's when you choose your major. Not all schools are that way, but many of them are. So what other resources are at our disposal? These, by the way, are all listed in your files section. These websites are outside easy places to go and get more additional self-awareness. So if you're a geek like me when it comes to MBTI or assessments, you can go into some of these and get additional homework done, basically. Key takeaways. You always have resources at your disposal. There's definitely still time left to discuss and explore potential careers. Our thought, just in general, the happier the student, the more productive the student, the better outlook on life, more growth potential means better quality of life. And then, the last thing is better earnings, not the first thing. So that's just our kind of thought for us. So with that said, what do we need to be focusing now if we're juniors? Definitely creating and revising the student resume. If you're not with us for long, if you signed on in December, you're probably not yet creating your resume. That's fine. If you have been with us and you've been through the initial resume meeting, definitely now is the time to make sure it's ready for prime time, because you will be getting teacher recommendations this semester, at least locating those people. And it's always good to have your resume ready to rock and roll for that. There's other reasons for that too, but a major in career investigation definitely is just what we spoke about. The college search, we'll be walking with you through that process and visiting schools. That's super important, especially if you're a junior. Now is the time to gain momentum on that. Many of us are in the midst of registering and signing up for and preparing for the March SAT or the February ACT. So that's on the radar. I'll put a shameless plug in for demonstrating interest in your top choice colleges. Many schools will track demonstrated interest. And I was walking through a student today doing some research, and lo and behold, there's a simple box on the department webpage that said, hey, would you like to get more information on our particular major at the college? And the answer is yes. Let's go ahead and put our information in there. So that's demonstrating interest in the college. consider summer enrichment, which we've talked about, and then also finishing this particular semester very strong because it's the 6th semester transcript, this semester's transcript if you're a junior, that gets sent to the college and evaluated. And sometimes the 7th and 8th semester will also show up as part of the evaluative process for admissions, but definitely the 6th semester transcript is going to be on the radar scope for the college. So finish this semester strong. All right, so we promise not to spend tons and tons of time. That was just a quick little tidbit on careers and information surrounding that. Are there questions? Okay, we will open up to any general questions at all. Anything beyond career, anything beyond majors?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, well, thanks for joining. And anything else, Anne-Marie, did we miss anything? Anything other announcements that you'd like to make?
I have a question.
Yeah, ask.
Yes, I heard someone had a question. Go ahead.
I just realized I'm not on mute. So on the youth science, we're just kind of joining with college inroads. Is that, do the students do that through their school, or is that through their portal when they get that?
Thanks for the question. That's great. 95% of the times they're doing it through us, which means they actually get an email. The students will receive an email link. It's an external website that's offered, by membership in our program. However, there are some students, a few that will actually do youth science through their high school, in which case they don't have to redo it with us. We're going to use whatever results that they've already had.
Okay.
We'll use that information in combination with the personality assessment to help translate what those results mean. So if your student has already taken it, all you have to do is share it, I think, accept the invitation that we send or share the login and the password with us, and we can take it from there.
Okay, great.
Yep. Other questions?
Hi, my daughter, she did the assessments and she's only a freshman, but she felt like they were pretty dead on. I did not see her as she was taking them, but every time she got the results, she was really surprised how accurately it really matched her personality or her interests. So she was really shocked by that.
It's really interesting. I love watching parents' faces when we go through the information for the first time. It's usually laughter, like, oh my gosh, how did they know? Like, can I get a copy of this? I need this for my kid, So yeah, it's really striking how accurate some of these things can be. And every once in a while, there's a clinker. Every once in a while, a student will have done this on a bad day, or something where we have to look at it and go, wait a second, and if that happens, that's fine. We can, there's a number of things that we can do to help, make sure the results are apropos. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very useful information. The other thing I wish that I could tell folks is that this information is really deep. If you really get into these websites, there's no way we could possibly spend enough time going into all the nooks and crannies, especially in youth science. So I just want to put that out there for general consumption. We have a little homework assignment that the students and the parents do together, and we call it a pizza meeting, where they get together and go through the results on their own after we've met about them, to search for careers and to look at the data a little bit further. And that's an ongoing process. The students can still use this information when they're in college if they want, so it's going to be available to them whenever they need it. All right, so any other questions going once?
So I have a question. It's a general question. So my daughter's a freshman and she took the that PSAT 8-9. So does that mean that the questions are just geared to all the way up to, for math, is it just geared all the way up to like algebra 1, or is it with geometry, or the score? What does it, I mean, I see what the percentile is, I see what she averaged amongst the nation, but what does this like what does this tell us? I guess because back in the day, they didn't have it for
Yeah,
grade
PSAT
levels.
7, 8, 9, 10. It's a
Yeah.
big moneymaker for College Board. So the truth of the matter is, yes, it's geared for whatever audience is there, right? If it's a seventh grade, great. They're not going to be testing us on algebra and advanced geometry and stuff like that. So that's good. The test is scaled in that way. But from a realistic perspective, the PSATs don't tell us a lot. Okay. And I will give you a great example that happened today. So I was meeting with a family. I said, hey, the student had taken the December SAT. He said, oh, I made I forgot what it was, a 1310 or something. And then he and his mom went, wait a second, no, that was a PSAT, right? And then they said, oh, yeah, no, forget the 1310. That was just the PSAT. We got some results back. Let me go to the College Board website. So they dug into the College Board website. They got a 1400 on the actual SAT. So 1310 versus a 1400, there's a month and a half difference between when they took the PSAT to the SAT. Student didn't do a whole lot of studying between the two, and yet they went up almost 100 points. So I don't take when someone tells me I made a PSAT of a 1200 or a 1350 or whatever, I don't take a whole lot of stock in that because I know that it's likely to change, and it's usually to the upside, which is usually good news. Now, students have to study, that's in this student in particular actually had done some initial studying over the summer for the PSAT and SAT. So they are doing practice tests. They need to continue to do some study because their goal is actually far above a 1400. But don't worry about whatever PSAT results come out, because truthfully, I've seen people move that marker hundreds of points from where their PSAT score is.
Great. It's
Remember,
just that. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, just remember, it's a practice. It's a practice. It's to help the kids get used to, the phrasing and the timing of the questions, as well as testing their knowledge too. So.
Great, thanks. Yeah, things have changed so much. And so it's like we're getting bombarded.
Oh yeah,
So
totally. Yeah.
Total paradigm shift from when, most of us were in college or high school for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the other thing I would mention is this on the importance, I would say, of the SAT or the ACT. And this is a complete sea change for our industry and for colleges because of COVID, right? So many colleges went test optional. Many are still test optional. And there are many colleges that are not test blind. In other words, they accept test scores. And when you start to look at the more selective schools, many of their applicant pools are self-selecting. So they will score higher on SAT or ACT and submit the scores, so we're telling students, and we have been telling students pretty much post-COVID, yes, test optional exists. Yes, if you're not a good test taker, no worries. But if you have the ability to study and can score well, absolutely take these tests and take them with fervor, because that can really, really help if you're trying to get into Rice, Grinnell, Wash U, Vassar, MIT, whatever. These are all hyper competitive schools. And it really does help the admissions process when you post a really high, critical reading of math or ACT composite or whatnot. So just, a word to the wise, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of students, especially right after COVID, were like, oh, test optional, we don't need to study, we don't need to take the test, forget about it, it doesn't matter. Well, it can matter. So just I'll put that out there. Any other words on that, Anne-Marie?
I mean, I would just echo what you say. Our philosophy is go ahead and take the test at least twice, and let's see what the score looks like in comparison to what the schools your students are interested in, what they're looking for. If it matches well, then we send the score. If they are test optional, that does give us the ability to be flexible with that. So a lot of times your application specialist, when it comes time for that, can help decide, which schools we send scores to and which we don't. Just depends on what's going to happen with test optional. I mean, we didn't know what was going to happen for the class of 23 until like June, when they were starting to fill out their college applications. So I imagine it'll probably be the same way this year. Until COVID's in our rear view, and then the colleges are going to have to make the determination of how important is this other metric in picking students that are going to be successful at our university. So total sea change though, like University of California won't take them. You can send them, but they aren't going to take them. They're going to throw them in the garbage. So.
And then the other side of the country, you've got the entirety of the Florida state system, FSU, U of F, they require them.
So there's Georgia.
Georgia Tech.
Schools. Mm-hmm.
Yep. You've got UNC Chapel Hill that requires them, Georgetown that requires them. So it's a fractured, status. I mean, some schools are going to require them, some are not going to require them, some won't take them at all, like the Emory said with the Berkeley and UC system. So, all right, gang, anything else before we sign off for tonight? All right, well, have a great night. I'm glad you're with us on the journey. And if there's anything we can do, just let us know.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.